Good morning students. Today I am going to start a new topic, that is working with numbers. So let's start with it. Every Java program includes the package java.lang.star. This package is imported automatically whenever you write a new Java program. Now this is a sample Java program. When I have first created this program, the package java.lang.star has been automatically imported. The java.lang.star package includes a set of classes associated with the native Java data types known as the wrapper classes. You can even import this package, that is java.lang.star, explicitly in your Java program. And this statement should be declared above the class declaration. Now in this particular sample program, I have declared a class specified by the name circle, and the statement to import the package java.lang.star has been declared above the class called circle. That's why you can see this package at the top. Now look at this point. It says this package is imported automatically whenever you write a new Java program. Now this highlighted portion is our sample Java program. It starts with a class identified by the name circle. Now when I have created this Java program, this package has been implicitly imported into this Java program. So even if we do not explicitly define this statement, this package will be implicitly imported by the compiler. So even if I omit this statement, it will still be okay. The package will be automatically imported. Now whenever you will import this package, that is java.lang.star, you can make use of a set of classes known as the wrapper classes. These classes are associated with the native Java data types such as int, float, double, string, char, etc. And these classes, that is the wrapper classes, provides the methods. Those help in converting and manipulating the data of different types. For example, if you have to convert an integer data into a floating point data, or if you have to convert a string data into an integer data, or if you wish to convert a char data into an integer data, you have to make use of methods that will help in the conversion process. And all such methods are inside the wrapper classes, which can be used only if we import the package java.lang.star. And creating a Java program shall implicitly import this package. Now in the next slide, I shall be discussing about the list of methods inside the wrapper classes. So let's discuss about the first wrapper class, known as the integer class. The integer class deals with the int data type. It provides methods to convert int type to another type. Now this particular wrapper class, that is the integer class, acquires the properties or the characteristics from a parent class. Okay, that parent class is known as the base class. Now the base class for our integer class is the number class. So all the features or the characteristics that this wrapper class exhibits, it is actually acquiring from its parent class, which is the number class. Now let's see the commonly used methods of the integer class. The first method is the Parseint method. Okay, it takes one argument or you can say it takes one parameter known as str whose data type is string. The purpose of this method is to return the integer equivalent of the number contained in the string. Now take the case of this example. This is the method parseInt belonging to the wrapper class integer. Now the value of str here is 1, 2, 3, okay, and it is enclosed within inverted code. This is because str has been declared of data type string, okay, so that's why 1, 2, 3 is enclosed within inverted quotes. Now you see, even if 1, 2, 3 is a number, okay, it is enclosed within inverted quote, okay, so that's why in this representation it is no longer a number, it is a string. Now this parseInt method shall return the integer equivalent from this string, okay, and then store it in this variable called n. In that case, the value 1, 2, 3 shall be stored into this integer variable n, okay, but it will discard its inverted quotes. Then the next method is reverse. It takes one parameter num of data type int. The purpose of this method is to reverse the order of the bits in num and return the result. Now see this example. This is the reverse method belonging to the wrapper class integer, okay. The value of num here is 1, 2, 3. Since the data type of num is int, okay, so the number 1, 2, 3 is not enclosed within inverted quote. Now this method reverse shall reverse the order of the bits in num, okay. As num is now 1, 2, 3, reversing the order of the bits shall give 3 to 1, okay. So now this method, that is reverse of 1, 2, 3, shall return 3 to 1. Then come to the next method signum, okay. It takes one parameter num of data type int, okay. The purpose of this method signum is to return -1 if num is negative, 0 if num is 0, and 1 if num is positive. Now take the case of this example. This is the parseInt method belonging to the wrapper class integer, okay. Here the value of num is 1, 2, 3. Now see, this num value, which is 1, 2, 3, is a positive value. Sorry, I had mistyped it as parseInt. Actually it should be signum. So signum is the method belonging to the wrapper class integer, okay. Then the value of num here is 1, 2, 3. Now 1, 2, 3 being a positive value, okay, in this case the method signum shall return the value 1, because it has been explicitly mentioned here that if the value of num is negative, it will return -1. If the value of num is 0, it will return 0. If the value of num is positive, it will return 1. Now that this number is a positive number, so this method shall return 1. And then the value 1 will then be stored into this integer variable called n. Then come to the next method called Tostring, okay, and its data type which it returns is string. Now the purpose of this method Tostring is to return a string that contains the string equivalent of the invoking object. Now here is the Tostring method belonging to the wrapper class integer. It takes one parameter n, okay, and the parameter n has been declared with a data type int, and the value assigned to n is 1, 2, 3, okay. So here n will have the value 1, 2, 3. Now this method, okay, this method, that is Tostring, shall convert the integer value out of n into a string value, and then it shall get stored into the string variable called s. Okay, you can see here the variable s has been declared with the data type string at the very beginning. Now since the value of n is 1 to 3, okay, then after being converted into the string format using this toString method, the number 1 to 3 shall be enclosed within inverted code, okay, and then it will be stored into the string variable called s. The next type of wrapper class is the float class. The float class is also derived from the number class, okay. So just as how the integer class acquires or inherits the characteristics from its parent class, which is the number class, in the same way the float class also acquires or inherits the characteristics from its parent class known as the number class. So both these classes, that is the integer class and the float class, has the same parent class known as the number class. So we can say that the integer class and the float class are the derived class of this number class, okay, and the number class is the base class of the integer class and the float class. Now this float class provides methods for converting and manipulating the floating type values. Say for example, if you have to convert a floating point value into a string value or a string value into a floating point value, you have to use conversion methods, okay, belonging to the wrapper class known as the float class. Now this particular chart shows the list of commonly used methods of the float class. The first one is isNan. The return type of this method is Boolean, okay, and it takes one parameter num whose data type is float. Now this particular method, that is isNan, shall return true if num specifies a value that is not a number, otherwise it will return false. Now take the case of this example. This is the isNan method belonging to the wrapper class float, okay. The value of num here is 123.567f, okay, where f stands for a floating point number, okay. So f here denotes that this number 123.567 is a floating point number. Now if you look at this number, it consists of a decimal portion, okay. So any number, okay, having a decimal portion shall be treated as a floating point number. So is this number. Now the purpose of this method, that is isNan, is to check whether the value of num is a number or not. Now in this case the value 123.567 is a number, okay, and it is a floating point number because it has a decimal portion, okay. So this method, that is isNan, shall return true, and then the value true shall be stored into this Boolean variable called b, okay. As a result, b will hold the value true. But in case if we put the value of num, okay, not as a number like this, okay, in place of this number if we put characters such as a, b, c, d, in that case this method, that is isNan, will recognize that the value of num is not a number, okay, and then this method shall return false, and then the value false shall be stored into this Boolean variable called b. So just keep in mind that whenever you put the value of this variable num as a number, then this isNan method will return true and store it into the Boolean variable called b. But if the value of num is not a number, okay, in that case this method isNan shall return false, and the value false shall be stored into this Boolean variable called b. Now note that the variable b has been declared as Boolean. This is because it can accept only two values, that is true or false. Then come to the next method, which is parse float. This method takes one parameter str of data type string. The purpose of this parse float method is to return the float equivalent of the number contained in the string. Now take the case of this example. This is the parse float method belonging to the wrapper class float. Okay, here the value of str is 123.567f. Okay, and this is enclosed within quotation because str has been declared of data type string. Now this parse float method shall extract the floating point number out of this string value and then store it into this variable called n. And when it does that, the number 123.567f shall get stored into this variable n, excluding the inverted quotes. Then come to the next method, toString. Okay, the value returned by this method toString shall be of string data type. That's why the return type of this method toString is string. Now the purpose of this method toString is to return a string that contains the string equivalent of the invoking object. Now take the case of this example. This is the toString method belonging to the wrapper class float. This method takes one parameter num whose value is 123.567f. Okay, now the data type of num is declared as float. Okay, so here the value 123.567 is a floating point value. Okay, now using this function, that is using this method toString, this floating point value, which is 123.567, shall be converted into the string value. And once the number 123.567 gets converted into the string value, it will be enclosed within inverted quote. Okay, as a result, this method toString, when it converts the floating point number 123.567 into a string value, that number gets enclosed within inverted quote. Okay, and after that, that string gets stored into this variable called s. So 123.567, when it is enclosed within inverted quote, becomes a string value. Okay, and that string value gets stored into this variable called s. And s is a variable which is already declared of data type string at the beginning. So that's all for today. And with this, I end my presentation here.